This is my university. I teach in Hong Kong at the University of Science and Technology. I've been there for 12 years now. I do a number of things there. One is that I am in various divisions of the university. And I take care of our international office. But I've also spent a lot of time teaching. And I teach in our MBA program, and I teach in our executive program sometimes, and I teach our undergraduate programs in ethics and on issues of environment. The university has done very well, and I say this not because I'm trying to brag or anything. I'm telling it for a reason. The university is, when I joined it, was celebrating being in the, I think, top 100 MBA programs. It's now the number 9 MBA program in the world. It is the number 1 EMBA program in the world, and it's ranked the top university in Asia. I'll tell you why I tell you that in a few minutes. I was here last year, and I came because this is the strangest conference I've ever been at. It's wonderful. This is the only conference I can come to where I sit on a panel with Swamis and Baba, and it's just absolutely wonderful that we can do this. And it's the only place I can find to do this. So I hope that next year we'll do the same thing and we'll come back again. I'm a practicing Buddhist. I've been practicing for, well, since 2004. I practice with a teacher who is in Bhutan. It's the Tibetan tradition, the Kyagyu Drukpa lineage. My teacher is Kyagyu Kamtrul Rinpoche, and I've been practicing this, and I bring this to the things that I'm going to be talking about today. If you are, unfortunately we don't have enough MBAs here, but this is part of my mission. When I left last year, I went back to my university, and I said that I was going to try to do something there. I didn't do as much as I wanted, but I did more than I thought I would. I started teaching meditation classes. I tried with the MBA program first, and the students said yes, the administration said no. So I started teaching to undergraduate students, and I taught a number of classes in each semester last year, and they got increasingly better. Lots of students came. I got invited to do some classes on leadership, so I did leadership and meditation. And then I got invited by the Entrepreneurship Center to set up some workshops on entrepreneurship and meditation. And I went back to the MBA office recently and I said, can I teach MBA meditation? And they said, no. So I came here when I saw the opportunity to come again. I put together this presentation about why I think MBA students need to meditate. And I mean all business professionals, because you are, if you are engaged in business education in any way, shape, or form, you are part of the problem. And I want to tell you why. Okay, you and I need a code. Oh, it worked. It's slow. Are you pushing the button or am I pushing the button? I'm pushing the button. Okay. You never know in life who's pushing the button, right? You just... we have a code. When I go like this, that means go forwards. When I go like this, it means backward, okay? So, awesome. I looked around, and you find in almost every top business program in the world, you find some form of business meditation. It's not required, it's just available to the students, and the usual reason is stress management. So we'll try that again. There we are. That's the usual reason that we teach MBAs or we teach in business schools meditation, is to help busy managers deal with the amount of stress in their lives. And I'm not, okay, this is not a criticism of MBA programs. When I go through this, you might think, oh, he's kind of down on MBA. I'm not at all. It's done wonderful things for the world, but we have to fix this from the inside. And so I'm trying to be very subversive here and try to suggest what we could do to make this better. Why do MBA students need to meditate? Okay, this is a picture of Moses. All right, and he's carrying down there. There's a guy named, if you are in MBA education, you know Michael Porter is one of the gods. We have Swamis and Babas. In business education, we have Michael Porter. He is the guy, okay? And when he writes his articles, the world just believes everything that he writes. And so we have our gurus. Peter Senge is one, Michael Porter. We have many others in there. we are very stuck with the teachings of Michael Porter and others. This is the world in 1850. And what you were studying in your management comes out of this time. That's why I want to tell you about this, is that your thinking, the ways you think, the models that you have, the assumptions that you make, are all coming out of a time that is long gone. It disappeared 150 years ago, but we're still doing the same thing today. In that period of time, there were two industrial revolutions. The first one happened in Europe, and that's when we used mechanization for the first time, and we used steam, and we used coal, and we thought we were very clever because we learned that we could take dead stuff out of the ground, burn it, and create energy, and we could use that energy to transform other stuff in the ground to stuff that we liked. And that was really the whole innovation behind the Industrial Revolution. We just got better at it over the years. The second Industrial Revolution went to the United States. And in the United States, there were two things. It was accident. It was not intention, but as you know, right, that the United States has become the role model for lifestyles around the world. It's an accident. It was a big empty country. It was emptied first by the diseases that the explorers brought that wiped out almost 2/3 of the population, and the remainder, they used guns and weapons and they managed to kill the rest of them, or most of them. And what was left over was a very big empty country. The railways were used in the United States to link one end of the country to the other end of the country, and the railway barons were the biggest CEOs in the world at that time, and they ran the largest organizations on the planet. In doing so, they needed new ways to run businesses because they couldn't run it the old way because it was too big. And the manager, the boss, the owner, could not see everything happening in the organization, so they needed other people inside there to do that. They needed professional managers. And out of that time, out of the late 19th century, around 1880 to 1900, we developed organizational structures that you see today that run in Indian companies today, Chinese companies today, American companies today. We also developed the world's largest homogeneous market by accident. This is not on purpose, this is by accident. Because we had the railways that linked one end of the country to the other end of the country, we developed the telegraph that went along with the railways. So you could control things. And that was very important for the railways because you only had one track and you had many trains and they needed to communicate back and forth. The control systems that you use today come from the same time. It was also the largest consumer market because in that country, which was about 30 million people around that time, you could sell and buy the same thing from one end of the country to the other end of the country in the same language. English was used everywhere. So you could sell, the Sears catalog in around 1890 was 500 pages thick, selling stuff all through the United States. Everybody could buy that. Mass production on a scale that the world had never seen. The rest of the world was up and down all over the place, but the United States, one homogeneous market, large corporations, modern management was developing. The Model T is amazing, right? That's when we developed scientific engineering to break down complex operations into tiny little pieces. That's what you study right now. How do you take a complex operation, you chop it into little pieces, you develop a supply chain, a value chain, and you make scientific organization. That's the idea that we can actually create efficiency through human operations. And you need overseers. So you have people that do the work. Take a factory in China right now, or a factory in India. Small pieces. Each person does a tiny little piece of the operation. They have a supervisor who watches them do that part of the operation. You have another supervisor that watches the line operators, and then you have the management on top of that. This is all great, right? This did wondrous things for the world. It raised billions out of poverty. Yes. If you're going to have mass production, you need somebody to buy your products, and that's mass consumption. This is a picture of an Oscar-winning film in I think it's 1929. It's one of the first ones there. In that movie, they discovered, and this is very smart, almost the first movie made out of Hollywood, one of the talking movies, they placed Hershey's chocolate bars in the movie. The stars of the movie ate Hershey's chocolate bars in one of their war scenes, and chocolate sales went up. And ever since that time, we've never looked back. The average American child, by the age of 18, sees 1 million commercials. You, in the back, you guys, the young ones, you are the leading consumer generation in India. You want more stuff than any other generation. You want more stuff than Americans. The studies that I've read about mainland China and what they want, mainland urban kids want more stuff than American kids. They see that as a sign of success, who they are. We developed the products to sell them not just products, we sell them a lifestyle and a promise of how they're going to live. The QWERTY keyboard is the thing on my phone. It's the thing on your phone. It's the QWERTY on there. And I put this up for a purpose. Most of you have heard this story, but I want to tell you the story with a purpose. The story of why the QWERTY keyboard was actually developed in around 1860. And it was developed to mechanize, it was developed around the mechanical typewriter with the purpose that the mechanical typewriter was designed so that the keys wouldn't stick. So you have never used one of these old things, I don't think. But on the old typewriters, if you pushed two keys too close together, the typewriter keys would stick and you'd have to reach them up and it was dirty to get them unstuck. So they designed the keyboard around the idea that the keys that were most used together, you wouldn't place them close together. So they tried to spread the keyboards around. The question is, why 160 years later do we have the same keyboard on your Samsung and your iPhone? And it's not because it's the best keyboard. We've had many good keyboards since then. The reason is the people. At one time, the clerical class in the United States was the largest class of workers in the United States. And the same thing is true in India, and the same thing is true in China. You go through a phase, right, where everybody is inputting data into systems, or you're typing letters, or you're using something, right? And since everybody is learning on the same keyboard, it's very difficult to say, we're just going to shift these keys around and move it from one side of the keyboard to another side of the keyboard. You can't do it, because everybody is trained. My argument is that's exactly what's happened with professional management. The first professional managers came out of 1908. That was Harvard. Actually, they were the first prestigious management. Thunderbird was first, but 1908 was the first MBA program in the United States. By 2011, you have about 140,000 USA MBAs. We have about 250,000 MBAs coming out. These are our future leaders and executives. Your CEOs primarily have MBAs. MBA is your dream for a rich life, the good life. The stuff, the girl, the guy, everything comes out of this. We have about 5,000 MBA programs and 2,000 universities operating these different programs. These people are all learning the same thing. When I travel the world and you travel the world, you will find that the MBA in Bangalore is the same thing as the MBA in Beijing. It's the same thing as the MBA in Hong Kong. It's the same one as in New York. The same thing. Now, the world has changed. 150 years ago, the United States was empty. Resources were infinite. The waste from production could be distributed everywhere. That time is totally gone. In China, one of my good friends is the head of strategy for Volkswagen. His mission is to put 30 million cars on the road in China in the next 10 years. If China goes the same way as the United States, right now they have about 30, 40 million cars. I put up there 70, I'm not sure. If they follow the United States, which has more cars than people, almost, they will have 1 billion cars on the road in China. That is not going to work. Recently in China, we've been having the worst air pollution. Unbelievable. Particulate levels of the safe level of our particulates at 2.5 millimeters is 10 particles per million. We have about 250 per million. Very hard to breathe. Stuff. You guys love stuff. I just put up things that we're using. We're using 85 million bottles every 3 minutes on the world. Stuff, stuff, stuff. Please, next. We're going further and further to get our resources. The deepest oil well actually recently is off the coast of Siberia. It's unbelievable how deep we go to find our resources now. Our species are being depleted all through Asia. We are chopping down the forests for palm oil, we're deforesting so we can grow crops that nobody really necessarily needs to make products that we don't really need. Meditation. We are so stuck because that is exactly what humans are designed to do. We are very good at learning quickly. We can learn a new habit in a matter of about 6 weeks is about the time to really learn a complicated habit. If you want to learn something simple, you can learn it in 21 days. We pick up the new habits, we're not very good at letting them go. We have about 60,000 thoughts per day. Of those 60,000 thoughts, 70 to 90% of them are on autopilot. We are just repeating our behavior over and over again. And that's fantastic. As a human being, I'm very grateful because when I learn it, it never leaves me. The trouble is, if we learn a bad behavior, we're stuck with this in our MBA education, in our undergraduate business education. We are stuck using models that the time is long past. You cannot repeat in India the same models that we are using in the United States. It's not going to work. You can't do that anymore. The same models are being used in China, and I see this. And we are choking on pollution. We are choking in the water. 80% of the waterways are polluted. The air is polluted across China. In Hong Kong alone, 10,000 people die every year because of respiratory disease, and we're one of the better cities. You can't do the same thing in India. If you follow the same models, if your MBAs all leave here and they go out and they do the same thing as in the United States, you will consume yourselves to death. It's time. There's a wonderful article that came out recently. One of the researchers found that at every point of our lives, we think all our change is behind us and that the future is going to be stable. It's a wonderful delusion. You think that everything that you've done in your life, all the ups and downs are all over, and that the future is going to... that you become aware of your own programming. And in that programming, you will find that that programming is not as real as you think it is. It will become more flexible. You will find that you are not as separated from other people as you think you are. You are not as separated from the natural environment as you think you are. And in that understanding of the connectedness, you will find new solutions. And for MBA students, for business students, for those people that are involved in business, I use MBA students as just a general way to get into my university. But if you can find new